Good evening, I'm Joe Ginger. Welcome to this educational video presented by Kent Police Officer Candi Buhl. The information provided is beneficial to students as well as adults. As a school resource officer, Candi wants to help in any way possible. I hope you enjoy this program. Thank you.
Good afternoon, this is Edward Glad, the Public Information Officer for the City of Canton, here today with our School Resource Officer, Candi Buhl. She's been on the department for quite a while, and we're just going to discuss today some of her duties as the School Resource Officer. Can you just start out a little bit and talk a little bit about your background, what made you decide to be an officer and such as that?
Sure. So ever since I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to actually be a juvenile probation officer. So all through high school, that's what I was gearing myself towards. My basketball coach's husband was a juvenile probation officer, so I actually got the opportunity to do some job shadowing to see if that was something that I wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to work with youth that had been involved in the criminal justice system or just the court system in general. So when I graduated from high school, I went to college where I was a law enforcement major, and I did an internship with that same department. I was hired there before my graduation working as a juvenile probation officer. I was there for 13 years. I ended my career. I did a little bit of juvenile probation and adult probation, and then I ended my career there as the chief juvenile probation officer, where I served there for about a year and a half. What got me to become a police officer was actually, as a probation officer, we created a defensive tactics program, and I went to the Police Training Institute in Champaign, where I became a controlled arrest tactics instructor. So I was using that to train other probation officers. I had to go back down to be recertified. When I went down to get recertified, they asked me if I would be interested in a position teaching at the Police Training Institute. Okay. So as a probation officer, I was teaching police officers. Just meeting different officers and talking to them about their experiences and stuff really drove me to then look into actually Canton is the only department I tested for. So the testing process had come up. It was just all timing. I tested for the city of Canton. I was then hired by Canton PD. So. Okay.
How long have you been on the department now?
I'll be starting my 11th year in January.
And how many years have you been SRO?
I started right before the pandemic, so it's right at 3 years, a little over 3 years.
Okay. Now, when you became the officer, did you want to eventually become the SRO, or was that something that you even thought about?
At the time, I wouldn't say specifically becoming the school resource officer, but I always knew that I wanted to do something with the youth, whether it was in our community or maybe even eventually serving in the schools. When I was on patrol, when I first started my career, I would go to maybe the after-school reading program that was at Oaklawn, just things that were centered around more kid activities, created some of the community-based programs that we have. Then when I moved to investigations, my passion has always been children victims, whether it be sexual abuse cases or domestic violence cases. So children have always been kind of my focus and things that I like to work towards and work for. So that was not necessarily what I thought I'd be doing, but it's just kind of what led me into being the SRO. Okay.
Talk a little bit, if you can, about some of the community programs that you were involved in.
Sure. So pre-pandemic, we had quite a few more, and I would really like to get those going back again. But prior to the pandemic, we had Movie in the Park at Jones Park. Right. We hosted several of those events. The movies were free to the community. We had great help and support from community businesses. We were able to serve popcorn and drinks to the kiddos. The officers were great. I had lots of volunteers as officers that would bring stuff to their families. And I think when it first started, we might have had 50 the first night. I think by the last one we had, over 250 people.
Nice.
We do the Christmas program at the Y, where the kids, Santa is there. The kids get to come on in, and they were able to use the Y's facilities, the trampoline. We served them cookies and milk. While Santa was in there, we'd read them a Christmas story. And that eventually expanded into getting more businesses that would help us out, where we were actually able to give the kids a picture of them and Santa for free. So it was free for the kids and for the families. The Back to School Bash had kind of taken a turn where no one was kind of hosting it and didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So I grabbed a hold of that program, and we had that at the pool a couple times, but it's kind of since been taken over by some of the church community. So
Okay.
we still participate in that, but it's just, that's not maybe our big
That's
organization.
not something that we actually
that I
coordinate,
participate,
right,
yeah.
Okay, so I guess getting back to the SRO program, when you took over, what are some of the things that remained and what are some of the things that changed? I know there was a little bit of a change in the programming.
Yeah, so DARE's been around since even when I was in school, and maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
But as with everything that we've learned is, especially when I worked in probation, I learned a lot about evidence-based practices and how to better serve, whether it be adults or kids. The DARE program has evolved a lot, but it isn't really an evidence-based program, and I wanted something more towards that to provide to the kids and to the school. So we still have the class is no longer called DARE, it's called Be Awesome. For the first half of it, for half of it we do cover drugs and alcohol, but it's an evidence-based program where it's more, I would say, before we were just telling the kids no, don't use drugs, no, but we weren't telling them why.
Okay.
So now this is more of, here are the drugs, here are the different types, here are the side effects, here's what it looks like, what it's called, here's what can happen if you make that choice. Because statistically we know people, not just kids, are going to try it. So it was important to just not say no, but to tell them why.
Right.
Give them those choices. But the other, not only are drugs and alcohol a huge part of our community anymore and just our nation, but also social media. Social media is a huge component that we are dealing with, and for not always the good, honestly. So
Right.
for 4.5 weeks, I cover internet safety, digital citizenship with the kiddos. Because, for example, social media apps, the majority of them, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, you have to be 13 years old to be on those. I have a class with 5th graders, usually 10 and 11. I would say 99% of my kids have multiple sources of social media platforms, and they're not even of age, which means either they are putting in a fake birthday or their families are helping them set that up. So we know they're going to be on it, so why not give them education? Why not give them education, how to stay safe on it, what to look out for? So we're really trying to add to not only the drugs and alcohol, being proactive with our youth, but now our next big epidemic, in my opinion, which is social media.
All right. And that's kind of taking the stance from the because I said so approach to, informing them and showing them, the good side and the bad side.
Absolutely. And I tell them that all the time. I tell my students, your words are so powerful. Your words will either hurt someone or help them, make it better. Just letting them know they have so much power, even at that age. And it's not just 5th graders. I do kind of some refresher courses for the 7th grade classes, just especially if something's going on at that particular time. Maybe this is happening in the social media world, so we want to address that, what's currently happening. As well with the drug world, with fentanyl just coming into play. I just did a talk with the 7th graders about fentanyl, making them aware of the new trends that are out there.
Okay, and I guess that kind of leads to my next question. What do you think are some of the most important aspects of being the SRO? How do you see?
Oh, gosh. So I think there really are I really feel that there's 3.
Okay.
And in the SRO position, our responsibility are really is law enforcement education, law enforcement type counseling, and then just law enforcement safety. So those are kind of the 3 areas that an SRO it has to encompass.
Okay.
So if I could start with the one with the SRO safety, huge aspect with the climate that we live in. It's really important to me to make sure that our school is as safe as I can make it. I know it may seem petty or minimal for some people, but making sure doors are shut, all of them. And not necessarily because someone's propping them open. Unfortunately, our schools are older, and the temperature fluctuation, sometimes I'll find doors that are sticking or they won't close properly. Just reminding teachers, even though it's hot and maybe they're in a classroom that doesn't have air conditioning, hey, we need to keep these doors shut. So that safety aspect, I think, is huge, and that's important to me. The other one, the educational portion of it, whether it be middle school, elementary, or high school, just informing the kids of, here's what can happen legally, this is what can get you in trouble, this is dangerous, hey, make your choices, but here's the information. And then from a law enforcement counseling standpoint, building those relationships with the kids, being someone that they can trust and they can come to, So I think that those are big, those three big aspects that I really want to focus on. And it goes more beyond just those. It's building the relationship. Unfortunately, we have generations of families and kids that have had negative experiences with law enforcement. So if I can be that officer that helps to try to change that or bridge that gap between family members and maybe what they're used to seeing from it, maybe in the past they had a bad experience. So that's another aspect that I really try to focus on, even though that's not part of the three areas that an SRO is supposed to be.
Well, I mean, and that falls into the whole community policing aspect,
Absolutely.
where you're trying to establish at least one positive impact
Right.
with the child, before they get to the point where they just absolutely have no trust for the officers when they see them on the street.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And the school is just a great opportunity to do that. And now that we've broadened the SRO program to not just be specific to the high school, I'm already seeing, from the younger ages and them moving up and just being somebody that they've seen when they were younger. So it's not odd to see, oh my goodness, there's a police officer in the school, something must be wrong.
Right.
It's not that anymore. It's, hey, it's just Officer Candi that's here.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to see them grow and to see, be there for them, for that constant person.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of talked about this a little bit, but and maybe we can get a little more into it. But what do you kind of strive to do when speaking or presenting to the students, or even just interacting with them at all?
Yeah. So when it comes to like teaching them, I would say my biggest thing is just making them informed. I don't know if it's frustrating or disheartening, but I hear kids get their information from this YouTuber or this gamer or this social media, and it's just making sure, okay, hey guys, we need to look into this a little bit more. I teach them, be your own little detective. Look more into that. Does this sound kind of fishy? So I think that that's a big thing, is just educating them, giving them the power of everything is not always what they see, without making them think that the whole world is scary. So it's definitely a balance to not make them paranoid or think everybody's lying to them, but just to start asking more questions about a situation.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important when it comes to the teaching aspect of it. And again, like giving them all the information about the drugs and alcohol. Do I pray and wish that no person would ever touch drugs and alcohol? Absolutely. But I know that we can't stop that. So let's make them informed as much as possible, so that they can make the best decision that they can at the time.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying about, they get a lot of their news from social media, and, there's nothing really that vets that stuff.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about a YouTuber or any other kind of influencer. It's just, as they call them, citizen journalists. They take a little snippet of information and they run with it, and they don't have the full story. They don't, most of the time they don't have the educational background to actually fully investigate something before they put it out there.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things we actually talk about in class is reframing. We can reframe anything. We can reframe a video. We can reframe a picture. I can show you what I want you to see of it. So we need to see, is there more to that beginning, from the beginning to the middle to the end, because we're only seeing parts of it.
Right.
So we talk about that as well. Yeah.
And the kids are impressionable enough to and they don't think about that.
Right.
They don't think about the fact that there's way more from the beginning or the end, and there's this little section.
Absolutely.
They're saying. So what, if anything, would you like to see her changed or improved with the SRO program?
So I'm really thankful. One thing that is changing eventually is that we are working on getting a second SRO, which I think is well needed. And unfortunately, we see a lot of even local communities going, increasing their SRO program because of what's going on. So I'm very excited that we will eventually be having another officer join us, one officer for 5 schools, and how many students is a lot to tackle. So I'm very excited to see that improving. One other thing that I'd like to see happen is to do some sort of maybe like a peer court at the high school level, having the kids, kind of be accountable for each other and letting their peers decide I think sometimes when you put more investment into a situation, people will definitely think twice, before they do something. So I'd like to see that. I know there are some schools that do that. I'm not exactly sure what it would take to enforce that, but I'd like to look into that.
Okay.
Keep some of the kids out of the court system if possible.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And like you said, hold each other accountable, and hopefully they'll make it through together.
Absolutely.
And of course, obviously, the second SRO will be great because that means you'll be pulled in a few less directions at the same time.
Yeah, because it's a fine line between, doing the educational component, which I think is incredibly valuable for us because now we're being proactive, not reactive. And it's going to take a little time to see these benefits. Hopefully, they're benefits
Right.
as the kids get older and become adults themselves. We want them to be productive members of our society. So now that's going to lend us to have not only be able to provide more safety, but also I think more education too.
Okay. So what would you say is your favorite part of the SRO program?
It's really unique. I would say that the relationships I have with the different ages has been something I wasn't expecting, and I really enjoy it. So when I go to the elementary school, you're talking kindergarten through fourth. They have just a different. It's almost like a love and an appreciation for you. And then when I go to the high school, it's so much more about joking around. Because they're older and they're
Right.
more mature, so I can kind of banter with them a little bit more and create those relationships that
Right.
way. So that was definitely an aspect of the job that I wasn't prepared for, I guess. And then the middle schoolers, they're their own creature, little. I don't want to say creatures, but their own people there too. So
Yeah,
they're dealing with their different
they're in the
things.
middle, yeah.
They're in the middle, so they're still testing those boundaries between the innocent K through fourth to
Right,
5 through 8 and then
right.
high school. So it's really neat to see where the kids are at and work with them at those different ages. It's if maybe there was something bad that happened at the high school or the middle school that somebody was unfortunately being negative towards whoever, but then to go to maybe the K through fourth and then they're like so excited.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah.
so that's definitely something I was not expecting from this
Well,
position.
yeah, and I was going to say, it seems like we've had several instances where, especially at the, like you said, elementary school level, where they kind of look at you as like you're kind of a superhero.
Yeah.
Like when we were talking about it around Halloween when
Yes.
you're all dressed up like police or whatever, but then you get to the high school level and it's more like you're a friend that they can joke around with.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to building those relationships so that they will, I want them to come maybe when they're in junior high or high school going, hey, this is what's happening. This is the new thing. This is what kids are doing. Or, hey, I got into this situation. I need help.
Yeah.
So I want to be that person that, and I joke with them and I tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell you I told you so, but I'm going to be the first person that helps you out.
Yeah. So I know we just kind of talked a little bit about the peer court and stuff like that, but is there any other goals you hope to accomplish while you're in the SRO program?
One of the things that I know that the principal at the junior high and I have been speaking about, and this happened when I first became an SRO, is we would like to see the families get more involved. So that's something that I'd like to see work on too. Having parents come to like the parent nights to see this is what we're teaching your kids. These are the things that you need to, what could you be doing at home? These are the things that you want to look out for. This is what an emoji means. This is what that acronym means. Because some of the families, check your child's phone. Because if we were checking our children's phone, we could see if they're being bullied. We could see what they're doing. We can see what they're saying, and I think that would prevent a lot of the stuff that comes into the schools, which disrupts the educational learning environment. So I'd like to see the parents get more involved. And maybe, I'm not saying with their children in general, but just understanding what's happening at the school. Instead of saying, well, why isn't the school doing anything about, or why isn't the resource officer doing anything about the bullying, as opposed to, okay, what I need to be checking into my child. Should they can they maturely handle social media? I don't care if they're in 5th grade or high school.
Yeah,
Some high schoolers may not be mature enough to
Right,
handle it,
right.
for sure. So that's what I'd really like to see, and I would like to get parents, because being the SRO isn't just for the students.
Yeah.
It's for the families too.
Right, yeah. And, again, I guess the other thing is having the second SRO kind of gives you the ability to kind of, bounce your ideas off the secondary and just kind of work together and maybe develop some kind of program that would, expedite that a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, well, I sure appreciate you stopping and talking with us today. Is there anything else you can think of at all at the top of your head that you want to mention, or anything that we didn't cover? Or?
No, like I said, I'm so glad that you asked those questions. Being the SRO definitely is not just for the students, if we can get, families involved, I think that's just going to help our kids. Again, we just have to be proactive and not reactive.
Okay.
So,
Thank
right.
you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.